YouTube? Welcome to another video. Joining me here for a bench workout. Doing something a little bit different. I got a little slacky on the recording exercises. So I'm going to throw 3 days into a video. So we're going to, cover more than half the week here. And that's just mainly from me being too lazy to film my sets that I should have filmed. So when you start breaking stuff into bits and pieces, you may not always get to a certain time limit that you want for videos. So also to catch up because I'm so far behind on stuff. But anyway, just working up here on bench, doing our wide grips. So this is a Monday. And really just kind of looking to kind of just continue the path forward and add weight over time, reps. I mean, none of this is fancy. This is how you get strong. This is how you add, volume and stuff to your workouts as you slowly over exceed what you can do, recover, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. Again, not all days are ideal, and then just kind of dialing the technique to kind of make up for those days where your strength or whatever may vary, and that's the plan here. I'm just trying to really dial in my technique and, make the bench something that is consistent every time I come in, so I'm not, feeling off. Obviously if you're fatigued, tired, or deep into a cycle of training, you may not feel ideal, and sometimes it's not even, the weight feels like it's moving slower or not as fast as normal. But if you watch the video, it looks pretty consistent. It's just, in your head, it just feels more fatiguing. So that's kind of like the main thing here. And, I'm just trying to plan ahead with my lifting and what I can handle. And we're still kind of experimenting and throwing stuff at, the fan to kind of see what I can do. Sometimes I'll get ideas for exercises I want to do, see how it, works with my current training. And probably one of the best philosophies is to undershoot those new movements and kind of work up into it. Sometimes if you haven't done a movement for a very long time and you hop into it, you can put up a decent amount of weight, but it's the recovery after the fact that you have to account for. And that's always been my thing. And then it throws everything off training wise, even if it's not in reality, it's just kind of your own mental perception. So whenever I'm thinking of changing something, I ease into it slowly. So I'm really trying to find something that I'd like to do for triceps that's, close grip similar, but kind of hits the triceps a little bit differently. Whenever I do close grip bench press, I do feel it in my chest more than I do in the triceps. So in the past, I've used a football bar. I've used something where you're, rotating your grip angle. So instead of, being parallel with the bar, you're perpendicular. And I always got an insane tricep pump from that. So that's probably something I'm going to include in the future, but I got to figure out where I am and figure all that out, the logistics of that lift to filter it into my current training. OHP here, again, pretty standard. We're back to doing OHP once a week now, just because of the recovery. I was noticing if I OHP twice a week, when I would come into squat, my lower back would be sore, and it would just kind of throw off my movements, and then I have to deadlift in that workout too. So for the sake of pressing, I'm going to just leave it at once a week, and then the secondary pressing seated movement will be like a dumbbell bench, a dumbbell, I guess seated bench. You're still using a bench, but yeah. So just kind of mixing it up there. Sometimes, if you go light enough, it's no issue. I just don't really see the benefit of overhead press if I'm not working in these heavier rep ranges. Like doing, reps with the bar overhead is just, I don't know, it starts to get fatiguing in the lower back. And I mean, that's just the nature of the beast, though. You're really supporting that weight and you're pressing out front. So that's going to be something here. Finally throwing in some tricep extensions. I do a lot of accessory work, bodybuilding stuff that I just don't show, because you can see here the angles are kind of weird, and then it's kind of hard to, you don't want to get in anyone's way when they're training. When I film, I like to just get my sets, film it, and then move on from there. And again, it's a tricep extension, not the most interesting thing in the world. Transitioning here to the leg day. And this is kind of what I'm talking about when I do my OHP, though, and then I have squats the next day, though. So again, that lower back, I mean, you're using every muscle in your body when you're lifting, doing compound lifts. But when it's something noticeable, it can really affect your mental state. And for me, squat's probably my weakest lift, though, so I like to be mentally prepared, warmed up, to make sure that I'm able to perform, the lifts that I need to do. And as we dial in squats and just trying to figure out where I want to be, kind of going all from there, it's going to really depend on my recovery You know, when you're not too confident in the lift or whatever, you may have some hesitation to go heavier. You may start undershooting stuff and then just, kind of sacrificing your potential for how much weight you can move. So that's kind of the goal here. I don't really care how heavy my squat is as long as I'm just making progress over time. Obviously, there's a baseline with where I'm at, but I want to make sure that I can recreate that over and over. Squat's just been so inconsistent, and I think a lot of it just comes down to, it's a mental aspect of it though. It's really just you not feeling great in the movement and not being confident. Like when I bench or deadlift, I'm pretty confident in what I'm doing. There's little diagnostic checks and likes that come on when I'm doing those movements, and if those things feel good in the moment, then I don't have much reservation for doing those movements. Whenever I'm squatting and I feel that weight on my shoulders, I'm like, man, I don't know. I wait to see how the rep goes, to see how I'm going to feel, and then kind of go from there, which again is not great because you want to be able to hit numbers that you've programmed for yourself. You want to be able to confidently go in and do movements that you know that you can perform because you've done them before, you've prepared yourself enough for them. And for me, that's the biggest thing. It's just squat, just not the most fatiguing movement from a mechanical standpoint, but when you factor in that confidence and struggle, it is definitely fatiguing. Obviously, deadlift for me just takes the most out of me. You're moving the most amount of weight, but you got to do what you got to do. But this is why I put deadlifts after the squat, because we've done the hard stuff, and then I can kind of cap my upper limit on deadlifts. But you're going to notice in the next few videos, after these other few that I'm editing now, I'm basically deadlifting first on my secondary day and then doing the squat after, so it kind of switches that whole dynamic. If by deadlifting I'm fresh, not fatigued, so when I do go to squats, and I will do like the high bar or the SSB, which is positioned further in front of you so that you have to stay more upright, I can kind of cap my limit on squats and use this workout, this secondary or this second day in the week, but primary squat movement as I'm moving weight with this thing, and then the other is a secondary day just to get more squat volume in, and then give myself enough challenge with the pre-fatigue deadlifts. So I'm doing conventional after here, kind of what I mentioned before, and these are beltless. So again, you have to be very careful when you're doing all these compounds, especially beltless. When I OHP, I usually use a belt if I'm going to red or above, so about 155. Lately, it's been feeling good though, where I can just brace and be fine. And like beltless lifting is always great though, but you just have to be careful that you're recovering. We all have an upper limit to what we can handle, and when you're overloading certain muscles with heavy weights, you have to be in tune with how your body is going to recover from that. So that's kind of why I'm always moving stuff around. Training is dynamic. I like training. I like being in the gym. I don't think much when it comes to fatigue about concentration, isolation movements. Majority of my time is thinking about how much weight I can move safely, and especially beltless. And I just think my deadlifts move better beltless than with a belt. So I have to factor that in an account. But you can't, you're simultaneously running multiple compound movements, and you want to not peak all of them, but add weight to them. There is a kind of give and take and balance, and you kind of have to know, when that happens, when to move on, and when to do other stuff. So that's kind of the logic behind there. And then just going back to the leg press. Again, I'm still trying to find a leg press where I can get range of motion. I've just got nowhere to go here. My whole body just kind of jam packs, and I don't know, like a wider pad maybe. There is a vertical leg press, but you can only put so much weight on it. And honestly, all this pressing, I've considered just like not doing them together and doing belt squat. But I don't know, it's kind of fatiguing throwing plates on, and I just want to be able to load, something up and be able to do the movement. And like I said before with the accessories, I definitely program because I'm trying to add more weight and reps, so I'm always monitoring, fatigue levels and how much weight I can add, which is fine. But they do not fatigue you in the same way that a straight barbell movement will. So you got to kind of balance all that out. In addition to that, with the rows and everything. So I'm obsessed with my barbell movements. This is how I first started and learned to train. When you don't have much equipment, you make do with what you have. So with the barbell, you can do a lot. And I got really good at squatting, deadlifting, rowing, benching. and then everything else came secondary. So it will always be my bread and butter. And if there's a barbell to row, I will row it. So just working on trying to find a nice connection so that I can do these safely. And again, with the bicep tendon tear, sometimes there is some fatigue that doesn't feel right when I get to this workout, and I'll kind of mitigate the workout. I won't go as heavy, or I'll kind of control reps or focus more on concentration and less overall weight moved, essentially. So it really just depends on how the body feels. After the injury, you really listen to it, because you start, hindsight's 2020. You start thinking about the little clues your body was giving you before the accident happened, and then you can recognize them. Pattern recognition is important, whether you're training or in any other aspect in life. Knowing when you're recognizing signs that something might not be going well and how to mitigate that is super important. So same thing here. Kind of moving to these isolation exercises is super beneficial for back, because you can really just attach yourself and just feel the contraction, the concentration. And to me, honestly, those are the better back workouts that I have. But I do like doing a strong pull from the floor. I do think that a decent row from the ground, not like a bodybuilding row where you're kind of holding it like an RDL and maintaining that, but a power row from the ground is a great way to build strength and speed from the floor, which a lot of people struggle with. For me, that's never been an issue. It's always been the lockout. So sometimes if you can get a bar moving fast enough, you can shoot through or give yourself the best chance to finish a lift there. So that's always been my thing. And then always like dialing in technique. But again, we're just doing movements here that are assisting the lats. They're a complex muscle group, important in everything that you do though. But it's very, I wouldn't say very hard, it's difficult for certain people to get a lat pump. And so to understand, the scapular retraction and being able to achieve that pump is kind of gnarly if you think about it. A lot of us get lower back pumps from doing movements incorrectly, where your lower back, you get that pump, it's uncomfortable. But to be able to get the lats firing, to be able to get a pump in like the rhomboids and everything, is something not many people can do. And it takes a good amount of training to be able to get to that point. So, we're kind of adding a whole bunch of different workouts here. I'll probably film more isolation stuff just going forward. It's just, it's cumbersome, tight spacing in between, and then people are waiting for stuff because most people in a gym are using the isolation stuff or whatever. The barbell stuff's more fun anytime you're throwing weight around. But here are the workouts here. As always, I'm always going to include them. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching the latest video. If you want to help support the channel, I actually own my own wet shaving and grooming e-commerce website where everything's handmade by me. It's www.apexsoaps.com, and you can get a 10% off code using wet shaver. We've got some cool scents here. We've got some Coca-Cola scents, a horchata scent, traditional barbershop, just some really cool stuff. And you can purchase samples or you can buy the whole set. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out via email. Be quick to respond. Thanks for watching.